gardening can get really technical. There's a lot of equipment and materials involved in any kind of gardening, and hydroponics gives you a whole new vocabulary. But if you think about it like any other kind of gardening, you'll find there are a lot of similarities and overlap. So basically you need containers and medium and plants and nutrients and water and light and air. So let's take a look, because I've got such a variety of components. Here's a drip system, and I like a system like this that uses cocoa coir and perlite in the Beto bucket or Dutch bucket as they're called. I really like these for vine crops like tomatoes and cucumbers. They do real well, and the plants can live for a long time in a system like that. The thing that separates us, to me anyway, a system like this with what is commonly called an NFT system, or any kind of a system that doesn't use a planting medium, the main difference in my mind is the longevity of the plant. If you want a plant to live for months up to a year, like a cucumber or tomato, now I'm using the new vining system that lets me coil up the old vines. And so this cucumber, I'm expecting will live for, a good year. I've kept cucumbers for almost that long without this kind of a vining system. And now with this, it allows me to coil up the old vine at the bottom, and I just keep letting out the string to let the new vine come out at the top, but without having to travel. And that will let me keep this vine at this length and this position for a really long time. And to grow plants like that, it's best to have it in a pot with some medium. I use the cloth to prevent the medium from washing away, and it's a nice mix of cocoa and perlite, which acts very much like a well-draining potting soil that retains a little bit of moisture. Here's where I had a sick plant, so I decided to remove it. And it holds nice moisture nicely like a traditional soil, but there's no organic matter in there, and it does drain better than a typical soil. It doesn't get muddy. An NFT system, any kind of a system that doesn't use a medium, in here I use these Oasis cubes. People may use Rockwool or other kinds of cubes. This is Oasis cubes. Are made from potato starch. They're biodegradable. It's a little bit of a leggier lettuce, but it'll come in nicely after a while. And this kind of a system is great for any plant that's got a shorter life, like lettuces. It's even pushing it with the chard, and I used to grow kale in this system, but I've gone back to putting kale in a more of a soil system because they're such long-living plants. And not only is it healthier for the plants to be in a medium, but they also overgrow these kinds of systems. So if you want to grow tomatoes, you don't really want to grow it in tubes like this, because the roots are going to get much too big and they'll clog up the tubes, and that will lead to not only poor plant health, but flooding and technical problems with your system too. So you want to keep a system like this with plants that have shorter lifespan and smaller root systems. So great for leafy greens. And then I also use the flood and drain systems, and in here we've got some baby carrots just coming in. It's a little dirty because we just took out a tray of carrots. We just harvested a beautiful tray. We get 38 in these trays. Here's a tray of radishes, and this week we'll plant another tray right next to it, more radishes. And then we have ever-bearing strawberries, which again is a long-living plant, so I've got it in the same growing medium, the cocoa and perlite, and in the cloth pots, but I'm still using a flood and drain system to feed these plants, because I found that it really works nicely. I'm getting a really nice yield. We harvested a couple of dozen strawberries this morning, and we're getting more consistent size as the plants develop, and they're doing really nicely in this system. And that's a flood and drain system, where you can see my other videos where I'm talking about the carrots in this kind of system, where the water floods in here and drains out here. And I have it going 4 times a day for the carrots and the radishes, and the strawberries I water twice a day. Other plants, the peppers and the cucumbers. This is a baby bell pepper that's almost a year old, and just look at this beautiful tree of a pepper plant. That's all one plant. And then next to it is a red bell pepper, which is also the same age and keeps producing beautiful full-size red bell peppers. We get really nice sized fruit off of that, and we've got hundreds and hundreds of these yellow bell peppers off of this plant. So they just keep going, and I'm able to keep these healthy, 4-foot tall pepper plants. You can see, look at the size of that leaf at the crown. It's as big as my hand on a baby bell pepper. Really beautiful, and produces lots and lots of fruit. And I do that in this drip system with the Beto buckets. So that's how I'm growing all my tomatoes and cucumbers and peppers. This is a snacking cucumber that's supposed to be like a pickle size, and they just get massive, and we get lots and lots of them. So it does really well. And I'm also happy with my new system to train the vines, because if you look at my early videos, you'll see this whole area was just covered with tomatoes that were growing over by the old PVC trellis system that I built. And those plants were so overgrown and so out of control. And now this new system with the strings lets me let out the tomatoes and the cucumbers and coil it up. I think it's gonna work real well. Let me show you over here again. I think it's gonna work real well with those cherry tomatoes, but I'm not so confident that it's gonna work to coil this big beefsteak tomato. And I'll have to see as it gets a little taller. It's time to let out another foot or so of string, and that'll give me more plant down here to coil up. And I'll probably get my wife to help to make sure that we don't break the plant, because this is a much thicker and not quite as flexible of a vine in my experience. I've been growing this particular variety for again about a year now down here. And here's our new cherry tomatoes. I just harvested some, that's why there's a bunch missing from this bunch, and they're just beautiful and really delicious. That's the Sakura variety. And let's see if I can find a whole bunch that hasn't been picked over. Let's see how nicely they grow. Big bunches of 8 or 10. There's a nice bunch there. I picked a few off of that bunch too, I think. Big tomatoes and really healthy plant. That's 2 side by side. And then I have a couple of new ones that I just started from suckers. Keep taking suckers off our tomatoes and keep getting more and more. And you're gonna see my high-tech method for doing that. So let's get back to the other equipment that you might need. We use a lot of these small trays. Here's some canvas cuttings that I'm just sexing. I took some cuttings off of some seed starts I have outside, so that I can put these into a flowering cycle and figure out the gender. We do have maybe a mistake, but we do have a couple of soil plants in here, which are citrus trees. And The lighting that I'm using is a combination. I've got the Gavita high intensity incandescent lighting, you know, which is what you call your metal halide or high pressure sodium. It's in, I'm not sure which it is, or if it's either of those or a different technology, but it's the same idea of a high intensity incandescent lighting. And right now I've got 3 of those running. This one's got the wide spread on it, a wide hood, and I'm planning to put a 4th one up over here. And then I do have the fluorescent lighting, which are these little Spider Farmer off of Amazon, which we're using mainly for seedlings and for when I'm using this extra space over here, which is now really a mess. But we have this set up and to do canvas in a 12-hour cycle, or to just grow stuff. We've been growing carrots in there actually. So that's the kind of equipment that I'm using, and an awful lot of little things. You know, we use our little EC meter and a variety of drippers and things, cloning gel, and my Corazze. I highly recommend this stuff, the Great White Mycorrhizal Fungi. Along with your nutrients, you're going to want some pH down, and you know, you end up with a variety of things. I use these digital timers. I've got you know, all kinds of clippers here, the tomato vine clips, which I use in connection when I'm hanging up the plants on here. I use this kind of a hook to connect to the string, and then I just connect that to the vine hook, the vine clip, and I found that works really nicely. So I've got a variety of hoses and hose fittings. One thing I didn't talk about is oxygen. So I use the General Hydroponics, this is called a Bluestone air pump. Forgive the mess. I'm not the neatest gardener, I guess. And that's to aerate the pumps. And get yourself a big stones for that. These are big 4-inch air stones. Don't bother with the little ones because they're useless. You're going to just get a lot more oxygen with this. My pumps are submerged. I use a variety of different PVC and drippers. I'm now moving more toward these Rainbird or rain drip. You know, it's the big company, and they make this 2 gallon per hour, you know, guaranteed dripper, and I'm moving toward using those simply because they're way more reliable than anything else. I've had so many drippers fail. And then for my flood and drain system, this is from Botanicare. Botanicare is another of the companies that makes a lot of really good equipment. I also use some of their trays, and I've been using a lot of this Active Aqua brand for their trays. So fans, I've got a variety of fans. The Hurricane brand is one. This is the OEM tools. This is probably the best fan that I have. And another thing that you want to get with your fans is a fan control. That's a power control that lets me dial in the strength of the fan on an infinite kind of cycle. Another kind of fan that I like a lot are these little computer fans. Look at that, they're USB plug, and you can daisy chain them together. So I've got those just blowing across the lettuce, and that prevents your lettuce from getting brown on the edges, and helps with them to uptake their nutrients and water. So fans are really important, and the oxygen in your tanks are really important too. Other than that, I've got fans everywhere. I've got an exhaust fan here. There's a fan inside the tent. I'm a big air circulation lover, and really works for the plant. The only other thing that I use is in the winter, I have a space heater in here because we're in the garage and we do get freezing temperatures. I put in one air duct that connects us to our downstairs heating zone, which raises it about 1 degree in here. And it's an insulated garage door, which also raises it, you know, a degree or two only. And then I use a little space heater, just a little electric heater there in the winter time, and that keeps us above 69 degrees anyway. Or 59 degrees rather. I'm trying to keep it from getting below 60, and I'm able to achieve that here. So that's a lot of what I'm using. That doesn't include all the small little fittings and doodads. You know, I've got such a variety of. There's a dripper that has a valve in the middle of it, which works real well. These drippers tend to fail a lot, and I use a lot of the 1/2 inch and 3/4 inch lines and a 1 inch line. This is a 2 inch regular PVC that's running on that, but you'll find that most of you can 1/4 inch for the feeder lines. So it's 1/4 inch, 1/2 inch, 3/4 inch, 1 inch is most of what's the standard stuff that you'll find fittings for too. And it's the same that's used in outdoor irrigation, really. There are other things there. You can find a lot of other stuff that's non-standard sizes, and it's better to stick to the standard sizes. And subscribe and get more tips and see how I grow stuff. That's the Gavita lighting controller. To run these kind of high intensity lights, you need a couple of more pieces of equipment besides just the light. You've got that box up there, which is provides the power to the lights, and then this, which is the controller for the lights. And you need both of those to run these, and you need to also know how to wire it. So I happen to have a heater up there that was running on a 30 amp circuit, and so I had the power right here, and I can plug 4 lights into that. And so if you don't know what you're doing with that, you need to hire an electrician, or just use the fluorescents, which are more plug and play. You know, and I plug those into these power strips and run them off of timers, and you can just plug those into a regular outlet. But to use these high intensity lights, you need to have the wiring on your 220 circuit to do that. All right, yeah, they're there right there, rain drip. I also get my 1/2 inch and 1/4 inch tubing from them. Here's one pump that I found to be real reliable but powerful. You don't need a powerful pump for a system like this. Calculate what you're actually running. I'm only running, 1 or 2 gallons per hour. It's really overkill to have one of these 500 or 1,000 gallon per hour pumps. So don't think that more is better, because you actually run into they can't operate. You can't push the water through, and you simply don't get water if it's too powerful of a pump. So that's my other big piece of advice, and happy gardening. Please post questions and let me know what kind of videos you'd like to see, and thanks for watching. Look at all those cucumbers, self-pollinating too.